Okay, next let's talk about the templates. The Deer template came from lightboxgoodman.com. They're currently having a sale right now and a BOGO, so you buy one, you can get one free. The only thing that I recommend when you're looking at the templates, because you can buy them off Etsy everywhere, is that pay attention to the shape of your frame. If you have a square frame, you need to buy a square template. If you have a rectangular frame, you can buy a rectangular template. The reason that you have to be careful is because if you try and resize a square into a rectangle or vice versa, you might find that the image is distorted. So I made sure that the Deer template that I purchased, when I purchased it, it was the 20 by 20 and not the 20 by 26. So once you buy the template, because I use Cricut, I loaded everything into Design Space. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to resize your template so that it matches your box. Although it is a 9 by 9 shadow box, if you measure the inside of the box, I was actually able to cut my templates at 9.125 inches. The reason being is because you want them to lie flat in the box, but you also want them to be snug so that they don't really flop around if there's a little bit of space or whatnot. So I went in and I uploaded all the templates, I grouped them together, I resized them all at once, and then I continued to cut them layer by layer. The one suggestion that I can make is as you do a layer, and once you put the spacer on it, which is quite simple, each layer comes with a little bit of a frame, so that's where you attach your spacer to, whatever you're using, the foam board, the weather stripping. Just make sure that the stripping that's on the back doesn't surpass the little border on the front, otherwise you're really going to see it in the designs. So as you cut them and add the weather stripping or the foam board, like I said, whatever it is you want to use, I take them and I place them directly in the box as well, because one, you want to see how it's going to look as you're doing it, and two, it can be a little confusing if you end up with all these templates on the table. So I'll just take my first shadow box, I'll put my piece of acrylic inside, and as you cut the layers, you just simply take them and lay them inside your shadow box. Just like that. In Design Space, I can go in and I usually go through the templates layer by layer and I clean them up a little bit with the contour. If there's something in there that it's really, really small or I don't think that my Cricut's going to cut it, I just simply remove it. So I clean up each layer. Like in the first layer, I went in and I cleaned up the grass for a little bit, which made it easier for my machine to cut it. So you can always give it a try. Cut the first layer. If you see that something's not cutting properly, you can go in and either remove it or try and cut it again. Again, it's all really trial and error. So as you go, you just keep cutting the layers and adding them to the box. And it's really quite simple as that. So for the deer layer, I went in and I removed all the spots off the deer because I didn't really want the deer. So that's one way that I altered the template a little bit. And you just keep going with the layers. So every time you cut a layer, you add the weather stripping or the foam board to it and you place it in the box. See, as you can see that once it's in the box, it starts to build up quite fast. I'm almost 1, 2, 3, 4 layers in and I'm more than halfway through the box. So if anybody is interested, I can do another video only with the Cricut Design Space because that's what I use, and I can show you how I go in and check it and contour and make it just a little bit easier for my machine to cut. So there's the next layer. So another layer inside the box. And I still have 1, 2, 3 layers left, and as you can see, I'm already at the top of my box, so that's when the second box comes in handy. Now, for this layer, this is the one in which I added the blue piece of vellum, and as you can see, I just literally glued it to the back and then put my weather stripping on. This one, in the template, it's a solid piece, which means that it's all white. So basically what I did is I just went in, I cut out a square with design space. So when it cut this little window. I printed my blue vellum, cut it into a square, and that's how I got the pop of blue when it's not on, and it's also what changes the color. So I like to always add a pop of color, and I always use the vellum paper in which to do it because it's what allows the light through, and it's also what changes the color. You can use a lighter cardstock. You can use basically whatever, you know, that you put in that you like. Me, I like the vellum because, like I said, the light comes through it. So that's how I altered that one. So that one goes in the box on top of the deer. The last layer that's in the template, which is only number 8, I went in and I removed all the little dots from around it because I thought that my Cricut would have a problem, but I still wanted a bit of a starry effect. You can see that the light comes through. So all I did was I took a push pin to it and I went and randomly created some little holes and then some bigger holes by pushing the push pin all the way in, and that's what gives it that starry look. You can kind of see the light shining through it there. So that's how I altered that one. In the original template also, it's not a square down here. It's actually, I think, 2 or 3 different circles. Because I used the vellum paper, I found that when I turned the lights on with the original template, that it actually shone through in little circles, and you could actually see it on the water, so I didn't like that. So again, I just went into the template and I cut a square at the bottom, and I figured that you weren't going to see it because the water pretty much covers it all. So if you're going to go in and you're going to change the templates, take the previous layers and lay them on top just to make sure that however you're altering it, you're not going to see the light. So that's what I did for that one. That one goes in the box. Now, when you buy these templates, they don't usually include the last layer, usually because it's just a square, and all that does is it goes in, it lays on top of your last layer, and it blocks the mechanicals from it so you don't see the lights and everything. The first box that I did, I used white cardstock, and although it does let the light shine through, it was kind of mucky, if you understand what I mean. So what I did for the final layer in this box, and probably why it looks so bright, is I took the sheet of acrylic from the second frame. I wasn't going to use it anyways because it's now, and I taped a piece of vellum to the acrylic. So this is now the layer that's between my lights and the design. And I find that by using the acrylic, it allows more of the light to shine through and actually disperses it a little easier. And the piece of vellum is actually now, when you add the layer with the moon to it, the vellum is what you see. So it's not cardstock, it's the white translucent vellum that allows the light through. So this will be the final piece in the box. So now I kind of had to work backwards, so I took my lights that are already in the box. I like to put my lights in the box first so that I can see, as I'm laying the layers, what needs to be changed. So the lights right now are kind of changing color on me. Let's find white. So you can see that the lights are now on in the box. When I lay the final layer, you can see how you're actually getting a glare from the lights in the video. I'm sorry for that, but when you're looking at it, it's actually, you can't really see the dark pieces that are coming kind of like there in the video, depending on how I turn it. But it does come through pretty uniform. So I'm gonna take my last layer and I'm gonna kind of work a little bit backwards here because I have to squish the 2 boxes together. So as you can see, now there's my moon with all my little stars. So, and that's what it looks like once you add the vellum for the paper. Again, you're getting a little bit of a glare, but when you're actually looking at it, for some reason, I don't see that, so it must just be the camera. So here's the top part, and I'm just going to put it on over. I originally started gluing my boxes shut, and then I found out that quickly that was the wrong thing to do because there was something that I wanted to change, so I was constantly popping the glue. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to hinge the two boxes together so that I can still open it. And this is what the finished light box looks like. And if I could find the remote, I could show you the different colors. Hold on one moment. So again, like I said, it's all the same color. Let me just see if I can. Oh, here we go. Let's try this. Is it working from this side? So see the blue? And here you can kind of see the color change. So the moon is one color and the water is a color, but the lights that are behind it are all one color. See, here's what a yellow gives you. You see the yellow at the top. The cardboard kind of looks an orangey color, and then the water looks green. Some colors it doesn't really show the difference much, like this one does. So you see the moon is one color, the water is another color, and the cardstock shines through as another color. If you look here in the grass, I see how you can see the light kind of shooting up between the layers. That's why it's important to leave spaces between the layers, and why I also use the last sheet is vellum, because it allows more light to come through, and that allows it to pop up through things like the grass and the trees and the whatnot. And that's it. Really quite simple. Another reason that I like to leave the box open is because sometimes you find that once you get it done, there could be a hair on the screen. Right now I have one of my long hairs that's wrapped around the inside of the screen, so I'll have to go back in and kind of clean that off, as well as some dog hair. And that's it. That's all it took to make this beautiful light box. With my Cricut, it probably took me about an hour to cut all the layers, but I mean, that's cutting the cardstock, clearing off the mat, reloading the mat, putting it back into the machine. And really, the most frustrating part about these light boxes is quite simple. It's just figuring out what works for the lights for you. I know that some people told me that they cut the LEDs, and rather than using these little clippy things, they solder them together. Not in my crafting repertoire, so I just find it easier to wrap the lights along the back of the box, which gives it a nice even glow. And then the excess, like I said, is what's highlighting the water and the moon. So you do what works for you. You put it together. I like to start with lights and kind of work backwards so you can see what works, what doesn't work. You can cut the original templates, go back in, then you can alter it, add your vellum paper, add a pop of color that you want. It's really a personal taste as to how you want to do it. This was just the easiest method for me.